guys.
Thanks a lot, Cora. Yeah, it's going great. There's a lot of cool matches going on. We got to check that one, but we're going to go straight into almost a recap of how this match ended. It is going to be Fr0zen versus Coglorin, and we know a lot about Fr0zen. We've discussed him already, a reasonable length today. But Coglorin, we are fairly familiar with as well. He actually played in the Winter Championships, the Winter Preliminaries, sorry, last year, and actually very recently won Copa America 2017 Winter Championships as well. Plays for Pain Gaming, so he's not a new name by any means here.
No, and funnily enough, Fr0zen, the big name here for sure, your pick on the blackboard. But Coglorin actually came into this as the higher seed. He's the number 3 seed this season. I believe 29 points to Fr0zen's 15. So in some ways, he comes into this as the favorite, but in dire straits at the position we joined the game, 2-1 down to Fr0zen. Both players had their Shamans banned. Coglorin was playing the quad aggro lineup, the most popular lineup in the tournament. 19% of players bringing the lineup that Coglorin's brought with him. Fr0zen, on the other hand, has the double Pirate, double Reno lineup, the lineup we're calling the Pavel lineup. The lineup that Pavel was successful with last week, the second most popular lineup in the tournament, brought by 16% of players. So this is two heavy hitters going up against each other in terms of players and in terms of lineup. And it's Fr0zen coming out on top, 2-1 right now, just needing a win with his Reno look.
Yeah, we know he does end up taking it overall, and I think it's a cool matchup to actually see as the last game, because the way Reno Lock and the Mage interact's really weird in terms of Reno Lock a lot of the time just has to go purely defensive, but they have a lot of aggressive options if they can clear the board. We do see the Burglary Bully does come down there, and one of the cards I imagine we'll be seeing a little bit more of in the near future as a pretty powerful 5-drop that may replace our good old friend Azure Drake.
Yeah, I must admit I had a minor heart attack there for a second, because I wrote down quad aggro for Coglorin about 20 minutes ago while the last series was going on, and I look up and there's a Burglary Bully on the board. I was like, hang on, that looks like a Reno Mage. But no, just playing Burglary Bully teched into the Reno Mage. It's a very, very good card, and you make a great point. Whenever down the line we're going to see the rotation kick in yet again, we're going to see a lot more freedom for these interesting 5-drops to make their way into competitive play, because that guy on the far right of the hand is going to stop terrorizing the 5-drop slot.
Yeah, and looking at the way the board shapes up already, as Fr0zen's finished his turn 5, this is already looking a little bit dire for Coglorin as well. It's the combination of Fr0zen having the board and being on 28 health, and having a lot of answers and potential taunts. So he has pretty much, a good amount of pieces to the puzzle to at least continue the game fairly safely here.
Yeah, you can definitely see how this ends up being a win for Fr0zen from this position. He has just about everything he needs in this spot. Coglorin probably spends the majority of this game trying to set up an Archmage Antonidas win condition for himself. Having dropped the Burglary Bully, he is playing the full Antonidas package, Emperor in there as well, I believe. So he probably goes through this just navigating, trying to set himself up a win condition. That's probably the only way he could have won this matchup from this position. But yeah, it's a long way off for sure. And yeah, again, no surprise to see Fr0zen coming out on top of this.
Yeah, and look at this turn as well. The fact that it was almost a pass turn for Coglorin. He drew some cards with Arcane Select and pinged a dude off, but being able to just tap into Twilight Drake is nuts. Like, what does Tempo Mage do to a 4/8? Not a lot most of the time. And if it soaks a Fireball and a Frostbolt, then Fr0zen's probably like, okay, like, fine by me. Try again, friend.
Yeah, quite often when there's one big threat down on the board, the thing you're looking to do as the Tempo Mage is go for some kind of Flame Waker plus Frostbolt. So you lock out the big threat and then at the same time clear up the small threats with the Flame Waker effect. But again, we saw this previously in Amnesiac series. When he's potentially looking at a Flame Waker turn, there's just a counteractive minion on the board. Before it was Acolyte, now it's Imp Gang Boss. Fr0zen is just successfully creating the most awkward of board states, and that instant 2-for-1 that you spoke about before is actually what does happen, and the Twilight Drake gets taken down by Fireball Arcane Blast.
Yeah, and because of the lack of true pressure from Coglorin here, it means Fr0zen can just live tap every single turn, and he's not even afraid. And now we see live tap into Vendor, so it's negated the past 2 taps from him anyway. He's back up to 28 health. He has another big minion on the board, and he's just tapped into Courier, which just opens up even more options for him next turn. And he doesn't even need Reno. Boom, perfect timing, that was good. And, you know, he doesn't even need to have Reno available, but the life taps, I was going to say, just continually help him get there anyway.
Right. And he did play, Fr0zen played a little bit into Firelands Portal that turn, just developing a ton of his stats into one place that could be Firelands Portaled on turn 7 by Mage. But I think he's totally fine, even if, say, a 5 health minion came out, which is average to good as terms of a result coming out of Firelands Portal, he would have Abyssal Enforcer to clean up, he'd have all kinds of options, he'd have Power Word Tentacles, of course he would, why wouldn't he? Perfect pickup, 4/5 Imp Gang boss.
And a great minion to get it on as well. You know, the Tentacles isn't normally the best pick out of, you know, a courier that you're going to see, but the fact that you could pick it and put it onto an Imp Gang boss against Tempo Mage, which you might think, well, they have a lot of pings, you know, so, you know, they're going to ping off the 1/1s. They're going to generate a lot of 1/1s first because of the additional health, which is just a nightmare when Fr0zen is already ahead on board. I mean, look at this now. The Imp Gang boss soaks up another Fireball. Like, what does Coglorin even do to end this game? You were talking earlier, set up for an Antonidas turn. He might just die before that happens.
Right. And now Fr0zen has that question he needs to ask himself this turn, or he did need to ask himself this turn, because Power Overwhelming is a great trading tool right now to take care of that Water Elemental. Power Overwhelming Mortal Coil, for example, would be a beautifully clean kill on the 3/6. But he's so far ahead that PO could just help him end the game immediately if he picks up Leroy, or even without it, just forcing through extra damage. So I think Fr0zen, in a matchup where he usually has to play the control, has decided that he's playing the aggro this game, and he's just going to, no, he is going to bail out at the last minute and double trade.
Yeah, I think because it's Water Elemental, it could just be a pain. You know, freeze out some of them. You could hit the Senjin and just freeze it out for no reason when Fr0zen, you know, uses the power overwhelming, to trade as opposed to extra damage, because it'll make him get more damage from his minions anyway.
Yeah,
and
totally fine with it.
Frankly, he's so far ahead at this point that he can probably pick any of those options and it's going to work out pretty well. He even has the, you know, the insurance policy Reno here just in case something goes disastrous.
Yeah, so again, Coglorin just staring down. You can see exactly how this just became a downward spiral for him. Not only is this game literally over because we're watching a recap, it is figuratively over right now. Like, it's so hard for him to climb back into this with so many of the answers that we see. Ragnaros is perhaps his one big terrible win condition right now, or terrifying win condition at least, but Antonidas doesn't really have the value to come out with it, but even if Rag came down, there's no clean answer with a Blast Crystal or Siphon Soul, but there's at least a Faceless, which still puts Fr0zen in a really, really solid position. Coglorin now going for the board sweep, trying to make his big push. He does have mirror images available as well, but it looks like he's going to hold back that for some Antonidas value now moving forward. Oh, just as if we didn't have enough tools.
There's always room for one more, isn't there?
Yep.
But yeah, bear in mind, everyone, as well, this is round 2. This match has been played out. We know Fr0zen has took the win, of course, because I picked him as my overall qualifier that I think can make it. And these guys are playing for the trip to the Bahamas to play in the Winter Championship. So everything on the line, and getting a 2-0 start is a fantastic way to begin that move.
And now we have a plan, or Coglorin has a plan. Antonidas Frostbolt mirror image this turn is looking very, very promising. But remember, at this position, Coglorin has no real read on his opponent's hand, and he hasn't had a threatening push in terms of minion presence. So.
Probably a good thing for Coglorin, he doesn't have a read on the hand, because he'd probably cry to a certain extent, because there's just so much available, tool-wise. Obviously, he feels himself in a reasonable position now as this. Depending on where this Rag hits, he does see the Enforcer. He's at, like, he's managed to just about stabilize at this point.
I mean, you say that he, you know, it's good for him that he doesn't have a read on the hand. If he did have a read on the hand, then he could have just jammed Antonidas because he knows there's no answer, and he potentially would have got 2 clean turns of Antonidas out of the board.
Polymorph 1 is an answer, my friend.
Sure.
But yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, yeah. The Kazaka's coming down now, means Fr0zen's going to go for a 10, which I'm genuinely surprised, actually. I thought you'd just go for a 5 here.
He's going to Faceless the Rag, right?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, I actually didn't even look at Faceless. That's why you're the analyst. Oh.
Yeah, that's as well as saying a couple of turns ago, is like there's no clean answer, but the Faceless functions as an auxiliary answer, and that's the point I was making about Antonidas. Faceless doesn't answer Antonidas, it does answer Ragnaros.
Yeah.
So if he'd have gone in the other order, and let me be clear, I am not by any means expecting Coglorin to have that good of a read on his opponent's hand, but a game that we know is over and we have been saying is just looking one-sided for the entire process.
There was a moment.
There was a moment where Coglorin, with a spectacular piece of play, could have actually got himself back into it.
Yeah, as it seems though, we did see the Rag snipe the Rag, and again, you know, we discussed multiple matches before, that hit feels like the nail in the coffin, just removing the Rag.
Right.
And now, because we can see, look, Coglorin's been forced to use pretty much all of his cheap spells to just try and stabilize again without Antonidas coming down. And this is one of the problems. Once you're out of those spells, you're pretty much just out of the game completely, and that is one hell of a potion. Deal 8, summon 3.
All Imp Gang boss all the time.
Yeah, bit of a punish for making that Imp Gang boss as big as it was. But I'm pretty sure Fr0zen is still happy at this outcome.
More than happy. And now the moment, you can see how it just passed Coglorin by, because now the Siphon Soul is in hand. There was one big answer there with the Kazakus potion. He's got enough time now, did Fr0zen, to pick up the Siphon Soul. And Coglorin just missed that one turn where he could have made something happen, but way too much to ask to make that big of a risk. Having not seen a Siphon Soul come out yet, having asked no question to even establish whether or not a Siphon Soul was there.
Yeah, and even with the risk play, you know, we discussed of like getting the Antonidas, it still might not have been enough.
Sure.
Because there is still Reno, and Coglorin would have to have played with the knowledge that he is relatively low health, and the Faceless wouldn't have come out, so there's a chance at Leroy Faceless for the burst as well. So very, very tricky to maneuver, even if you went for the play of like the God Wound earlier on in the game. But now it looks like, you know, we mentioned earlier, Fr0zen does win this game. Looks like he is just cleaning up the final few bits here that's left of Coglorin all over the arena.
Yeah, no option left. He's got to go for the push. Again, it's just an irritating board to generate this on, because everything gets cleaned up so nicely. But he looks like he is just going to try and hold on, thinking about whether he wants to fireball immediately. He could still drop the Flame Waker here. It wouldn't necessarily be wrong to do so, because the Flame Waker missiles have a chance of just generating even more board with the Imp Gang boss. But he is going to go for the fireball.
Yep. Fireball's going to be able to clear up the Emperor. But the problem is, you can just, if you just glance, right, Coglorin would have needed, like, chain draws of ultimate cards to really deal with this Fr0zen. Just broken cards that are just like, you play this, you win the game. At this point, that is really what he would have needed. Fr0zen's so far ahead, and as you mentioned earlier, Fr0zen put together, or managed to put together, just answer cards. So he was far ahead enough on board to say, well, whatever you play, I can actually just guarantee deal with, and then just move on for the win to finish up the final bits of health that are left.
I like this little cute play from Fr0zen at the end there, just using a very, very low value Demon Wrath to set himself up with lethal for the following turn. It's potentially not going to work out, because second Mirror Images was picked up, and now suddenly Coglorin is back in it with a Flame Waker and a Dream, but Fr0zen all the resources in the world to clutch this out in any way he sees fit. Could even Peddler a Soulfire this turn, potentially. 2 shots at it now with a Ram.
If that's the way this game ends, I would enjoy that quite a lot. It's probably not going to be, but I hope it is. He's throw away the chance.
He's just going to go for it next turn. Nether into the 2-mana Farseer. This is probably the 100% safest in every world play that you can make, so do not blame him. He can fall back on the Peddler play next turn if he wants to fish for that last piece of damage.
Coglorin's just pushed the Sorcerer out and said, look, it's on you, friend. Do what you can do. That, along with a ping to face, will not be enough. Corruption, not going to do too much here, but as you said, 2 goes with the Peddler. Any form of extra damage from this, and
that'll do.
Yeah, that'll do it. It's going to be power overwhelming to finish off the game, and Fr0zen goes 2-0 in this round. I am feeling pretty great about my pick.
If you picked Fr0zen and he goes through, and my pick Danudachi did not get on the board because the pre-show got cut.
What pick? I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm going to be livid for the rest of my life.
He's making it up.
Okay.
He didn't pick Danudachi at all. So we can check out 2 of the locations we have here. There's everyone playing around there. Oh, it looks like there's a lot going on, actually. It looks like a lot of the players here. There's Santa Ana and Orlando as well. A lot of the players, they look like they're either deep in-game or like very focused on like what happened last last match. You see Hot Meowth in Santa Ana there, getting ready to work what he wants to do for the next round.
Yeah, doing well so far. Hot Meowth, one of our 2-0 players, I do believe, and Santa Ana definitely a huge hub for esports events in general in the area, not just Hearthstone, but today Hearthstone taking over There's the most important game that we all know we are. But yeah, great locations.
Yeah, and now we're going to check back in with Cora.